Let us go back a little to those early ideas of God and see what became of them. We perceive at once that the idea of some being who is eternally loving us, eternally unselfish and almighty, ruling this universe, could not satisfy. Where is the just, merciful God? Asked the philosopher. Does he not see millions and millions of his children perish in the form of men and animals? For who can live one moment here without killing others? Can you draw breath without destroying thousands of lives? You live because millions die. Every moment of your life, every breath that you breathe is death to thousands. Every movement that you make is death to millions. Every morsel that you eat is death to millions. Why should they die? There is an old sophism that they are very low existences, supposing they are, which is questionable, for who knows whether the ant is greater than the man, or the man than the ant? Who can prove one way or the other? Apart from that question, even taking it for granted that these are very low beings, still, why should they die? If they are low, they have more reason to live. Why not? Because they live more in the senses. They feel pleasure and pain 1,000-fold more than you or I can do. Which of us eats a dinner with the same gusto as a dog or wolf? None, because our energies are not in the senses. They are in the intellect, in the spirit. But in animals, their whole soul is in the senses, and they become mad and enjoy things which we human beings never dream of. And the pain is commensurate with the pleasure. Pleasure and pain are meted out in equal measure. If the pleasure felt by animals is so much keener than that felt by man, it follows that the animal's sense of pain is as keen, if not keener, than man's. So the fact is, the pain and misery men feel in dying is intensified 1,000-fold in animals, and yet we kill them without troubling ourselves about their misery. This is Maya. And if we suppose there is a personal God, like a human being, who made everything, these so-called explanations and theories which try to prove that out of evil comes good are not sufficient. Let 20,000 good things come, but why should they come from evil? On that principle, I might cut the throats of others because I want the full pleasure of my 5 senses. That is no reason. Why should good come through evil? The question remains to be answered, and it cannot be answered. The philosophy of India was compelled to admit this. The Vedanta was, and is, the boldest system of religion. It stopped nowhere, and it had one advantage. There was no body of priests who sought to suppress every man who tried to tell the truth. There was always absolute religious freedom. In India, the bondage of superstition is a social one. Here in the West, society is very free. Social matters in India are very strict, but religious opinion is free. In England, a man may dress any way he likes or eat what he likes. No one objects. But if he misses attending church, then Mrs. Grundy is down on him. He has to conform first to what society says on religion, and then he may think of the truth. In India, on the other hand, if a man dines with one who does not belong to his own caste, down comes society with all its terrible powers and crushes him then and there. If he wants to dress a little differently from the way in which his ancestor dressed ages ago, he is done for. I have heard of a man who was cast out by society because he went several miles to see the first railway train. Well, we shall presume that was not true. But in religion, we find atheists, materialists, and Buddhists, creeds, opinions, and speculations of every face and variety, some of a most startling character, living side by side. Preachers of all sects go about reaching and getting adherents, and at the very gates of the temples of gods, the Brahmins, to their credit be it said, allow even the materialists to stand and give forth their opinions. Buddha died at a ripe old age. I remember a friend of mine, a great American scientist, who was fond of reading his life. He did not like the death of Buddha because he was not crucified. What a false idea! For a man to be great, he must be murdered? Such ideas never prevailed in India. This great Buddha traveled all over India denouncing her gods and even the God of the universe, and yet he lived to a good old age. For 80 years he lived and had converted half the country. Then there were the Charvakas, who preached horrible things, the most rank, undisguised materialism, such as in the 19th century. They dare not openly preach. These Charvakas were allowed to preach from temple to temple and city to city that religion was all nonsense, that it was priestcraft, that the Vedas were the words and writings of fools, rogues, and demons, and that there was neither God nor an eternal soul. If there was a soul, why did it not come back after death, drawn by the love of wife and child? Their idea was that if there was a soul, it must still love after death, and want good things to eat and nice dress. Yet no one hurt these Charvakas. Thus, India has always had its magnificent idea of religious freedom, and you must remember that freedom is the first condition of growth. What you do not make free will never grow. The idea that you can make others grow and help their growth, that you can direct and guide them, always retaining for yourself the freedom of the teacher, is nonsense, a dangerous lie which has retarded the growth of millions and millions of human beings in this world. Let men have the light of liberty. That is the only condition of growth.